I almost filed for Social Security at 62. The reason I didn't changed everything. I want to tell you about a Tuesday morning in October when I was 62 years old, and I had the Social Security Administration's website open on my computer and my hand on the mouse, and I was about 30 seconds away from starting the application process. The form was right there. The benefit estimate was right there. The number that would arrive in my bank account every month starting in a few months was right there, and everything about that moment felt completely reasonable. I had worked for 38 years. I had paid into the system every single paycheck for 38 years without missing one. The money was mine. It was available, and I was about to take it. I did not take it that morning. Something stopped me, and the difference between the benefit I eventually received and the benefit I would have received if I had clicked that button on that Tuesday morning in October is a number large enough that I think about it with genuine gratitude every single month when the deposit arrives. I want to walk you through everything that happened between that Tuesday morning and the decision I eventually made. Not as a lecture about what you should do, as an honest account of what I considered, what I almost got wrong, what changed my mind, and what the math actually looks like when you do it completely and honestly, rather than stopping at the part that supports the decision you already want to make. But before I do that, I need to say something directly. The decision of when to claim Social Security is one of a small number of financial decisions in retirement that is genuinely permanent. You can change your investment allocation. You can adjust your withdrawal rate. You can sell a property or consolidate accounts or revise your budget. Most of the financial decisions of retirement are revisable. This one is not. The claiming age you choose establishes a benefit amount that stays with you, adjusted for inflation, for the rest of your life. There is a one-time do-over provision that allows you to withdraw an application within 12 months if you repay everything received. But for practical purposes, for most people, this is a one-way door. What you decide when you stand in front of it follows you through every year of retirement that comes after. I did not fully understand that when I was 30 seconds away from clicking the button. I understood it abstractly the way you understand most things you have not yet lived. It took a specific conversation with a specific person to make me understand it in the way that actually changes behavior. Let me tell you about that conversation. But first, let me give the other side of the argument its full due, because I think most content about Social Security timing dismisses the case for claiming early too quickly. And when you dismiss an argument too quickly, you lose the people who are actually living inside it. Here is the honest case for claiming Social Security at 62. The first argument is the one about the bird in hand. The money is available. You can take it now or you can wait for a larger amount later. But later is not guaranteed. You are 62 years old. The average American man who reaches 62 has a life expectancy that extends into his early 80s. The average American woman somewhat further. But those are averages. They include people who live into their 90s and people who do not make it to 70. If you are in the second group, if your health is not what it was, if your family history is not encouraging, if you have reason to believe that a long retirement is not what is waiting for you, then the calculation changes fundamentally. Taking a smaller benefit for more years may produce more total lifetime income than taking a larger benefit for fewer years. The second argument is the investment argument. The money you receive at 62, invested consistently at a reasonable return, could potentially grow into something that offsets or exceeds the larger benefit you would have received by waiting. If you take the 62 benefit and invest every dollar of it for 8 years while living on other income, the accumulated value of those investments plus the ongoing benefit could, under certain assumptions about market returns, match or exceed the value of the delayed benefit. The math on this is genuinely complicated, and the outcome depends heavily on what returns you actually achieve and how long you live. But the argument is not frivolous. Under certain conditions, it is mathematically defensible. The third argument is the certainty argument. The Social Security system exists in a political environment that has created legitimate uncertainty about its long-term funding. Whether that uncertainty is well-founded or overstated is a separate conversation. But the person who claims at 62 is claiming benefits that exist right now at a level that is certain. The person who waits until 70 is betting on a system that will still be paying full benefits in 8 years at a political and fiscal level that is not entirely within their control. The fourth argument is the simplest and the most human. You worked for this. You contributed to this system through every paycheck of a long career. The money belongs to you in the most direct sense that retirement assets can belong to anyone. The idea of waiting 8 additional years to access something you spent 38 years earning has a genuine emotional cost that the purely mathematical arguments tend to undervalue. I sat with all of those arguments on that Tuesday morning. I had been sitting with them for months, and they were not obviously wrong. They were reasonable arguments made by reasonable people in reasonable circumstances. My brother-in-law had claimed at 62, and he was not stupid. Several people I had worked with over the years had claimed at 62, and their reasoning had not been frivolous. The arguments existed because they reflected something real about the uncertainty and complexity of the decision. What changed my mind was not a better argument. It was a conversation. There was a man in my neighborhood named Gerald. He was 74 when this conversation happened. He had retired at 61, claimed Social Security at 62, and had been receiving his benefit for 12 years by the time we sat down at his kitchen table on a Saturday afternoon in November. Gerald was not struggling. He was fine. His retirement was functional and his situation was stable, but he was willing to be honest with me in a way that most people are not willing to be honest about financial decisions they have already made and cannot change. He told me what his monthly benefit was. He told me what the Social Security statement had shown as his projected benefit at 67 and at 70 back when he had made the decision. He had never done the math on what those numbers meant in terms of total lifetime income across the years he had actually lived. We did that math together at his kitchen table that afternoon. What we found was not a catastrophic number. Gerald's retirement was not ruined by his claiming decision, but the cumulative difference between what he had received and what he would have received if he had waited, measured across 12 years of monthly payments, was significant. Not abstract significant, specific dollar significant. And when we projected that difference forward across the remaining years of his actuarial life expectancy, the number grew into something that would have changed the texture of his retirement in ways that were no longer available to him. The thing Gerald said that I have never forgotten was this. He said the decision felt completely rational on the day he made it. He had done the math on the break-even point and decided that waiting until 82 to come out ahead was not a bet he wanted to make at 62. He said the math had looked right. What he had not done, what he wished someone had made him do, was model what the difference in the monthly benefit meant not just at the break-even point, but across every month of a retirement that was now clearly going to extend well past 80. He had calculated when waiting would start to win. He had not calculated by how much it would win across the full remaining years of his life. Those are different calculations, and they produce very different numbers. I drove home from Gerald's house and I sat down with a legal pad. I want to walk you through the math I did that afternoon because I think it is the math that most people skip, not the break-even calculation. Most people do some version of that. The fuller calculation. At 62, my benefit would have been approximately 70% of my full retirement age benefit. If I waited until 67, my full retirement age, I would receive 100%. If I waited until 70, I would receive approximately 124%. Those percentages translate into specific monthly dollar amounts that I am going to keep in general terms here, because the specific numbers vary by individual earnings history, and the principle matters more than my specific figures. The question I asked myself was not just when the total received by waiting would surpass the total received by claiming early. The question I asked was what the monthly difference would mean at various points in my retirement when other costs might be higher than expected. Healthcare, long-term care, the expenses that retirement planning conversations mention abstractly and that become concrete when you are actually living them. A larger monthly benefit in your late 70s and 80s is not just more money in aggregate. It is more money at exactly the point in retirement when the portfolio is most depleted, when the capacity to generate additional income from work or consulting is most limited, and when the unexpected costs that all retirements eventually encounter are most likely to arrive. The insurance value of a larger guaranteed monthly income in the later years of retirement is something that the pure break-even calculation does not capture. You are not just optimizing for total lifetime dollars received. You are also building a floor that holds up under conditions you cannot fully predict at 62. The second thing I calculated that afternoon was the interaction between the Social Security decision and the rest of my financial plan. This is the piece that most people miss entirely because they think about the Social Security decision in isolation from the rest of the retirement picture. If I claimed at 62, I would be receiving Social Security income from age 62 onward, which meant I would need to draw less from my retirement accounts during those years to cover living expenses. Which sounds like a benefit to the retirement accounts. Less withdrawal means more time to grow. But the calculation is more complicated than that. The years between 62 and 70 are also the years when Roth conversion opportunities are most valuable for many people. When you have Social Security income filling part of your income need, your ability to do large Roth conversions without pushing your total income into higher tax brackets is reduced. The Social Security income takes up space in the lower tax brackets that Roth conversion dollars could otherwise occupy. The tax efficiency of the pre-Social Security years, what some planners call the gap years, is genuinely significant, and it disappears the moment you start receiving benefits. I am not saying this consideration alone should determine when anyone claims. I am saying that the Social Security decision does not exist in a box by itself. It sits inside a larger retirement financial picture, and it affects other pieces of that picture in ways that the isolated break-even calculation does not reveal. The third thing I calculated was what my wife's situation would look like under different scenarios. Spousal Social Security benefits are based in part on the higher earner's benefit amount. A larger benefit for me means a larger potential spousal benefit for her. The decision is not only about my lifetime income, it is about the financial security of the person whose retirement is financially connected to mine, and who statistically is likely to outlive me. The reduction that comes from claiming early does not only affect my benefit, it affects what she can access if I am no longer here. That consideration changed the emotional weight of the decision in a way that the purely individual calculation had not. By the end of that afternoon, with the legal pad, I had not arrived at a universal conclusion about when everyone should claim Social Security. I had arrived at a specific conclusion about what my situation required and what I would regret if I took the shorter view in that moment. I want to be honest about the cases where claiming early is the right answer, because those cases exist and the people living inside them deserve honesty rather than a universal rule that does not apply to their situation. If your health is genuinely compromised and your life expectancy is meaningfully shorter than average, the math shifts significantly. The break-even point exists for a reason. If you have strong medical reasons to believe you will not reach it, claiming early may be the correct financial decision, and no one should tell you otherwise without understanding your specific circumstances. If you have an immediate financial need that cannot be met any other way, Social Security at 62 is better than debt at 20%, or the depletion of a retirement account at a moment when the sequence of returns is unfavorable. Financial necessity is a legitimate reason. If you are part of a couple with a significant age difference or a specific spousal benefit situation, the optimal claiming strategy for the household may involve one partner claiming early while the other delays. These situations require modeling that goes beyond individual break-even analysis. And if the psychological cost of waiting, the stress, the uncertainty, the feeling of leaving something you earned sitting uncollected, is genuinely affecting your well-being and your relationship with money in ways that compromise other good financial decisions, that cost is real, even if it does not appear on a spreadsheet. What I am describing is not a rule. It is a framework for thinking about a decision that deserves more careful thought than the amount most people give it in the months before they turn 62 and the number becomes available. Here is what happened after that Tuesday morning in October when I closed the browser and did not submit the application. I waited, not immediately to 70. I want to be honest that the decision was not that clean. I waited through 63 and 64 and 65 while doing Roth conversions in the gap years and managing the withdrawal from my retirement accounts with the specific strategy that the absence of Social Security income made possible. I watched the projected benefit on my annual statement increase with each year I did not claim. I had conversations with my wife about the spousal benefit implications. I built a cash reserve specifically to cover the final years of waiting without drawing down the investment portfolio at an accelerated rate. I claimed at 68, not the maximum delay, but substantially later than 62. The monthly benefit I received was meaningfully larger than what I would have received at 62. That difference arrives in my account every single month. It has arrived through years when the investment portfolio needed protection. It has arrived through a year when unexpected medical costs exceeded what I had budgeted. It has arrived with the reliability that a guaranteed income source provides in a retirement where everything else is subject to some degree of variability. I cannot tell you what my benefit would look like today if I had clicked the button on that Tuesday morning in October. I know what it would have been reduced to by the early claiming penalty. I know how many months it has now been paid at the higher amount. The difference is not theoretical. It is a number I could calculate to the dollar, and it is a number that would make the decision feel obvious in retrospect, in a way that it absolutely did not feel obvious on the morning I almost made it. What I want to leave you with is not a rule about waiting until 70. It is the thing Gerald said at his kitchen table that stayed with me through every year of the decision I was still making. He said the math had looked right on the day he made it. What he had not done was make sure he was doing all of the math. Not just the break-even, not just the monthly amount, the full picture of what each option produced across the full retirement he was going to live, including the years he could not see clearly from where he stood at 62. The form will still be there when you have done that math completely. The Social Security Administration is not going anywhere. The benefit is not going to disappear before you finish thinking clearly about the decision you're about to make permanently. Take the time the decision deserves, because the deposit that arrives every month for the rest of your life will either reflect that you did or that you did not. And unlike almost everything else in your financial life, there is no going back to do it differently.